I thought to chime in this morning. I don't know if there's a Trek episode next week, but I thought I would chime in on the semi-controversial, very short Trek, about 5 minutes or so. To Skin a Cat. As a cat person, I thought it'd be funny. Uh, so yeah, Jessie Gender already beat me to it. She's already posted something, but but I thought I would also chime in as an SNL fan from back in the day, as an X generation person born in the '70s. Um, Understanding that humor can be subtle, it can be Ivan Reitman style humor where you say that drama is extraordinary things happening to ordinary people, and comedy is ordinary things happening to extraordinary people. So comedians pull out a scene and make it bizarre or funny or whatever. You have, classic Belushi where he's just in a cafeteria and he does something weird or gross. You have Chevy Chase eating a sandwich that's been contaminated, dude. Yeah, something like that. You have a fake news guy reporting a news story that's completely like either mundane or weird. They do that all the time on the Daily Show. Something like that. Never punch down with humor. Always have it. You don't want to go after everybody. Only certain comedians can do that. Louis Black back in the day, George Carlin, Rodney Dangerfield, they could do that because they're kind of making fun of themselves as well. When George Carlin did humor, he was like, I am, yeah, everybody is fair game. Everybody sucks. I want to go after everybody. It's just like, yeah, I'm gonna take a pot shots at everybody. All right. But he never actually specifically gets anti anybody. He just goes after like, this situation is dumb to me and it's my opinion. Yeah, so Rodney Dangerfield says he gets no respect at all, back in the day. Yeah, I'm not a boomer. They keep saying boomer, but they're being funny. No, my parents would have been boomers, or even earlier than that. My parents were old. My mother's 87 now. My father would be, if he was still alive, would be 97. So they were the World War II era people. Before the baby boom. The baby boom is anyway, right after World War II. That's what the baby boom is. So yeah, 30 years later in the 70s when I was born, so that's the X generation. Anyway, so that puts that frame on things. Right after the original Star Trek had ended. Right afterward. We grew up on it. We watched Star Trek. The diversity of Star Trek. Right in the middle of the beginning of the whole thing. The whole diversity thing. Right back in the day. It's nothing new. The Me Too movement is not new. It's from the 60s. It's the civil rights movement. But I had the late Sister Yvonne said, if you remember the 60s, you weren't there, dude. So, yeah, she was a boomer. But yes, so, yeah, the point of this Star Trek episode, they got it all wrong. What happens in the Star Trek episode is Kirk says an idiom to skin a cat. And first of all, Kirk would never say that at all. And Emrys, the cat lady, gets upset. This is followed by several other characters getting upset until it becomes a right-wing talking point about, oh, see how butthurt our entire crew is. There's even a butt character, a knicker, pants character. There's a screw character. It's like, okay, it's turning screw or something. And it's like, yeah, it becomes a talking point. It becomes not funny. It's like Greg Gutfeld wrote this sketch. Why did they let him write it? No, that guy should not be in comedy. That guy it's an opinion, but he should not be in comedy. He's not funny. Maybe Dave Chappelle wrote it. He's not funny anymore. Tossed out all his DVDs. Don't want it in his Chappelle show. It's just, yeah. If you're anti, whatever, you're done. I'm not watching your stuff anymore. Yeah, if you're anti-Semitic and anti-trans, you're done. I'm not watching it. All Harry Potter stuff, threw that out too. Yeah, it's got a J.K. Rowling lady. Anyway, so she ain't funny no more. So yeah, and apparently Jessie Gender also did a thing of interviewed Mike McMahon about Lower Decks. In Lower Decks, he mentions the security officer Shax's in love with the cat lady. Tabby or Talen or something. The cat lady. But that makes perfect sense, as I commented in my comments there on the comment thread. I commented that, yeah, it makes perfect sense that those two would shack up. You got like a Cat McCoy, basically. It's a gruff Cat McCoy doctor who's and a security officer who, even though he's gruff and wants to beat the heck out of everybody, secretly he's got a heart of gold and he's a pussy cat. So he's a cat person, like literally, and she happens to be a cat lady. So also, what's funny is technically MRES, if it's Larry Niven, MRES, let's see, the Kzinti and the man Cleanse. Okay, there's this Cleanse and the Kzinti. So she's a Cleanse and the other one's a Kzinti. So the cat doctor is a Kzinti, which is fun. Yeah, I'm not the Larry Niven in there. They're actually the warrior race. So the doctor's from the warrior race of the Kzinti. Naturally, they would shack up. Of course they would. But how I would have done this sketch had I written it, I didn't write it. Yeah, I wouldn't have gone anywhere near it. I would have made the juxtaposition more on the side of McCoy, and the joke more there because McCoy would be expected to say something like that, because he's that old country doctor, country bumpkin thing that he's got going on in the classic Trek. So it'd be McCoy that would say the idiom, but Kirk would start with it. So in my idea for the sketch, it would be more like an SNL sketch from the '80s with Belushi in it, and it'd be more like he's like, he would say to MRES, "Oh, it's one way to skin a cat," and she would go, "Captain, same starting," and he's all like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you or anything, but there are lots of other Earth cat idioms you might like." Because that's what Kirk would do. He would be suave. He's the captain of the Enterprise. He understands his crew, right? So he starts naming cat idioms that would be not offensive. He starts immediately going into, "Oh, it's perfect," and "Oh, yes, scratch for fleas," and stuff like that. And he starts like saying different things like, "Well, I could, pet you," or whatever. And he starts to get a little fresh with her, and she's like, and then he's all, "Oh, wait a minute, and then the doctor. Not so much Spock. He might mention something there too. He might be confused. He might mention a cat joke in there. So it's all on MRES. So the joke is they're kind of playfully bantering instead of insulting the person and going into, "Oh, we're going to insult the Me Too movement. We're going to insult the cancel culture." No, don't insult the cancel culture. Play with the cancel culture. Friendly. Pet it like it's a cat. As a cat, pet the kitty. Pet the cancel culture. Love the cancel culture. It's a tribble. It reproduces everywhere. It's very fuzzy and cute, but it reproduces everywhere. So get it spayed and neutered. I should neuter your pets. So the late game show host guy. Neuter your pets. But yes, that also was a good joke. Because like bunnies, cats reproduce like crazy. But yes, then the joke would be that McCoy says, "Well, Jim, you've opened a can of worms there." And that's when you cut to the worm crewman who looks like a dune worm on the floor, fixing a console with his teeth. And he's offended. But he's only kind of offended. He's like, "Oh, we're a proud warrior race from the planet Dune. Why not? Why not? Throw that in there. We're Vervillians are a race of proud people." And McCoy's, "Oh, I'm sorry there. I didn't notice. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding around." He's all that's all right. Just so it doesn't happen again, sir. And then it ends. End the sketch right there. There's your 2 minutes. The joke is that there's one other crewman who is strange and different, and the joke is that McCoy is the one that insults him, not Kirk, because that makes more sense. And then apologizes. That's the way to do the sketch. Then it's funny. It's a Dune worm. Because Star Wars and Star Trek have been cribbing from Dune for years. And it also acknowledges Dune 2, which is coming out, hopefully. The writer's strike doesn't go on too much longer. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the short Trek so far. Just thought I'd chime in and say, you know what? Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable because they didn't do it right. They were trying to be all things to all people and failing. There's an expression, an idiom. Don't try to be all things to all people. Be a original one, basically. Something like that. The idea being that don't try to be all things to all people. Be a servant of one, kind of thing. Yeah, try to your audience when you're on comedy, when you're doing comedy. You on the stage. I guess it applies more to stage fright, which I've never had. But yeah, you concentrate on the one or two people in the audience that you are connected to, so you don't get to see the whole audience. But of course, I love an audience, so that's more kind. But we're on the set of Robotech Meets the Transformers right now, and yeah, so back to that. But that's that, and I just thought it didn't work. Also, what didn't work is the Trouble with Edward, the Tribble episode from the Tribble short track, but I tied that in. So in my version of the Tribble Hunt, I said that Locarno, the captain lady in that story, is actually an ancestor of Nicholas Locarno and Tom Paris, and she shows up in the Tribble Hunt story as an old lady because there's a planet that has time warped the Enterprise B, and it's sitting there on the planet, and the Tribble planet in that episode. See, that's funny. That's funny. Oh, well, they happen to be there because 78 years is between them. I thought that would be funny because they know, like, Classic Trek and Next Generation started at the same time. Classic Trek was doing movies. They were up to part 4, The Voyage Home, in 1986, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to do a new Star Trek show, but set it 80 years later." And so, Silly in Space, Starship Realms, my story, fan films with Mark Skarts. They are sometimes they cross over. Sometimes you have a story where it's not only, well, currently it would be 2323 in Classic Trek right now. The end of Stardate 0, the end of they reset the Stardate so that they're over again. It would be around there, and it would be in the Next Generation. It would be technically 2401, 2400, 2401, somewhere around there. So before Picard season 2, but yeah, it's kind of they started the Picard series in the wrong place. They should have actually, if it was literally 20 years after, and we've been on that tangent before. If it was literally 20 years after Nemesis in 2379, it should have been 2399. It's only 20 years later, so yeah, the other dates don't line up unless Star Trek Picard season 3 is actually in 2404. Doesn't line up right because the kid's too old. Picard's kid's too old. They screwed that up. We tried to have it fix it. They tried to fix it with part 2 by saying it was 2024 in the other timeline, and it's kind of like fudged. So it's 2400, 2401. But then they said, no, it's 2401 in Star Trek Picard season 3. Picard's son would be 19 or 20 in 2401. So if he was born right after the events of Nemesis, because but he doesn't appear to be. He appears to be in his 30s. It doesn't match up. The actor looks like he's in his 30s. He does not look a young 20-something at all. I mean, if it was someone like the kid playing Spider-Man, he would look like he's still in his young 20s, and he's in his early 30s because he looks that young. You know, when I was in my 30s, I looked like I was in my 20s. I gotta pull that off. There was a commercial, you know, with the stretchy guy. Yeah, I was 20. I was playing a kid. Wait. Oh, playing somebody 15. It's like, no, I was like 20, 22 or something. Anyway, but yeah, so, but yeah, I kind of acted like, yeah, so yeah, the idea that, I'm kind of kidding, but the idea is that, yeah, your comedy has to be, yeah, back to the comedy thing. I was around a tangent about Picard, but yeah, they kind of messed that up. But this is a Star Trek rant, so why not? I'll just put it on the main channel. Your comedy needs to not, like, spoof like that. Why did they? Yeah, that's odd. It's odd that Lower Decks, the first season of Lower Decks was kind of a mess, but then it got better. And it's odd that the character development on that show is better than the character development in season Discovery, seasons 1 and 2. Except for Anson Mount in season 2. I mean, the guy playing Lorca was fun in season 1, but nobody else was. Well, maybe except the breakout character Tilly, who was awesome. But yes, being that that's the Cillian they included on the crew. But yes, now Mr. Wiseman and Mary Wiseman, don't worry about it. Yeah. Uh, but yes, and of course they included Cal in season 3. He shows up. Somebody else playing him. I would have played him. He's me. But no, they didn't hire me. I wasn't in the acting guild, so they didn't hire me to play myself as a sort of a pseudo gangster who gives them the technology with the little they're in the 31st century and they have a device and what's a little device he's got made out of a programmable matter. That was it. Yeah. Cal. And then there was Sue Cal later on in deference to Jung Swan and Marshall Sportist. The kid had destroyed the universe without knowing it. That's definitely out of Cillian space. Yeah, they were cribbing her stuff. They could have paid us, but they didn't. I'm not going to take credit for that because they screwed it up. But the burn of all the ships blow. Yeah, I think the Klingons were wrong. At least with the other one, Strange New Worlds. They made the Klingons more look like Klingons again. They could have been other Klingons. What I would have done with Discovery Klingons is I would have said they weren't Klingons because they looked so radically different. I would have said that they were their ancient enemies, the Hurjnak, who were or not the Hurjnak, but the Boroth, not the Hurjnak, the Klingon guys that Kahless fought that looked kind of like Klingons. Yeah, those the armies of air and darkness and whatever, those guys, the Iconian guys. I would have said it was them. That would have been cooler. I'd been like, oh, okay, they're not really Klingons. They're these other guys that are working both sides. That are dealing with the Klingons and the humans, and they want to start a war. That's what I would have done. But they didn't ask me. So. But yes, yeah. So, yeah, I was rambling about the other Star, but this is a Star Trek thing, so it's fine. Yeah, so I would have done something else with that, but they didn't ask me, so I just include some of my characters in their stuff. We'll try to get Prodigy back, but we'll do something. The connections out there are thinking. I spoke to one of the connections yesterday, and he was thinking of, well, maybe they can put it up on like Amazon Prime and Netflix vicariously instead of, because it is Nickelodeon, so they might go to Amazon Prime. So we'll see whether Amazon picks it up, because technically Paramount Plus is available on Amazon Prime, so they could pick it up. Yeah, we'll see whether Prodigy. Did I say Lord? I mean Prodigy. They might save it, so we'll see. We'll see. However, he's SAG, WGA, so the strike is going on. So if the games mess up, then he can't do anything. But yeah, I'm not SAG or WGA, so I can continue to do these.